We told you about a potential threat at our local public schools. The DeSoto Parish Sheriff's Office and DeSoto Parish Schools say they're aware of a social media post that was shared within the past 24 hours. Police believe a live video was posted where an individual insinuated a threat targeting various schools in Caddo and DeSoto parishes. The DeSoto Sheriff's Office says police have increased manpower around all schools until they're done investigating. Joining me now is Chris Ardwood with the Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office, talking about recent school threats in our public schools. Brandon, what kind of threats are our schools facing?
Yes, ma'am. We get a variety of threats. We get bomb threats. We get threats that there's a school shooting. So far this year, we've actually had a threat of an active school shooter. Whenever we get these threats, we have to take them very serious. It's not something that we push to the side or wait. We have to act immediately so that we don't have instances like have recently been in Atlanta and things like that. We don't want that to happen in our school system. So we work with the school board. We work with the schools themselves. We have plans for lockdown procedures. We have plans for to keep the kids safe in those instances so that we can make sure it gets resolved as quickly as possible, and then we find the source of those threats, and then we deal with those accordingly, like prosecution for criminal acts and things like that.
And Chris, tell us, what classifies a school threat?
There's a lot of things that will classify a threat. What we do is a lot of times whenever we charge them, it's under the terrorism statute. In that it says that there has to be a mass interruption of public services. So like that would be like a school lockdown or a lot of deputies having to respond to the scene, or law enforcement or the fire department for bomb threats, things like that. Anything that disrupts the community and causes a big scare in the community to think that there's an act happening or going to happen or about to happen, something like that. Whenever those happen, we have to take all those precautions because we don't want to not react, and then we don't want something to actually happen whenever, if something doesn't happen correctly, we want to make sure that we actually are there for the children, for the public and everything, and make sure that they're safe and secure in their environment.
And Chris, we're about to wrap up, but just before we go, just tell us some preventative measures that students and also parents can take to prevent these things from happening.
Yes, ma'am. So a lot of the threats that we have been from students who have either been bullied, they're not comfortable at school, things like that. A lot of them come from inside the school. There's also outside where they're communicating with people on social media, and then the other people make the threats. We've been able to locate that. So a lot of this is just communication with your children, making sure they're comfortable at school. Also talking to them about the severity of their actions to make sure that they don't do things hastily. I've always tell people whenever I do these investigations, before you do something, sit down and think about the consequences of what you're about to do before you do it. A simple step like that can prevent a lot of the stuff that happens. And like I said, by taking it seriously, by being there for your kids, if there is an issue with them at school, if they are getting bullied, if there is a social anxiety issue, if it's just that they don't like school, they don't want to be there. Those are things you can address with your kid and work through before they become a problem and before we have a larger incident where there are lives at stake.
That's some really good information. Thank you so much for joining us, Chris.
Thank you.